Sung Jin Woo vs. Kirito has become a pretty popular matchup between both the respective fandoms of Solo Leveling and Sword Art Online, and for good reason. When you take a look at them, both of them have a pretty key similarity between them. That being the game-like way they gain powers and use them. Sung Jin Woo, obviously, for most of the series, uses the system to level up and gain power. Kirito pretty much does the same in the first couple of arcs, actually pretty much throughout most of the arcs, and that's how he gets his power and uses them. And both are pretty much known as the strongest character of their respective series. So it's pretty understandable why they are compared quite a lot on YouTube, TikTok, you name it. Now, I know I haven't uploaded in about a month or so, but now that I'm on summer break, I'm going to be trying and uploading more videos. But even though this is my first time covering Sword Art Online on my channel, if you guys want to see more videos regarding Kirito or any other characters from the series, you can let me know what kind of matchups you want if you just want me to cover them individually. Now, going back to the matchup, I'm going to be quickly covering Sung Jin Woo first, as the main thing with solo leveling is there's really only two good statements for your Sung Jin Woo compared to a lot more for Kirito. Now, what are the two statements I'm talking about for Sung Jin Woo? Well, basically, there are beings known as the Ichirim, or outer gods in the verse, and they have a direct statement of being capable of creating countless universes. Now, this at bare minimum should at least be 4D, but Sung Jin Woo, even early on in the series, is even capable of fighting against monarchs who are known as transcendental beings compared to the cosmology of solo leveling. So this would at least make them at the bare minimum 4D, but all the way up to 5D. Now, other than that, there's not a whole lot of stuff for Sung Jin Woo. Of course, you might hear people go and say that he's out-reversal due to him being the concept of death, but let me quickly clear up this misconception. While it is said he is the concept of death, it's a lot different than what you might think. In context of solo leveling series, Sung Jin Woo is capable to arise the dead, aka his iconic catchphrase, and turn them into shadows for his army. That is what it means by him being the concept of death. He doesn't literally control the death of people and when they die and etc., things like that. If that was so, he would probably win most of his fights in a matter of seconds. But that never happens. But with that being said, let me move on to the main character of Sword Art Online, also known as Kirito. Now, before I do any Kirito scaling, some of you might already be going down to the comments talking about but Kirito's inside of a game, which would just mean that this is 2D, and since Sung Jin Woo is in the real world, everything he does is automatically above any feat Kirito does. But that's actually not true. For starters, let me pull up Versus Battle Wiki. For any of you who like to use Versus Battle Wiki as your main source of argument, you're already losing this fight. While some games in Sword Art Online are said as fictional, the characters don't actually show any transcendence to them as admitted by Versus Battle Wiki themselves. So if you want to use Versus Battle Wiki logic, they don't actually transcend these worlds. So every feat that they would have would just scale to the real world. But I don't like to use that. So I'm going to be talking about the main stuff I'm going to be using for scaling anyway, that being the Sword Art Online Seasons 3 and 4, being Alicization and War of the Underworld, which are both set in the same technically game, but I'm putting that in quotations as I'm about to explain why. Basically, in Alicization, it's known as the Underworld. Now, what's so special about the Underworld, you might say? Well, unlike all the other arcs in Sword Art Online, or games as you should say, the Underworld isn't actually a game. It's rather a simulation. Now, the special thing about the simulation is it's actually said by the characters of the series to be more real than the actual real world, as is generated by the STL, or the Soul Translator. And this is actually even shown by Kirito in the first couple of episodes of Season 3, when he goes to attack goblins and he gets hurt. He wasn't expecting, to feel any pain due to the pain absorber feature for the VR worlds. But in here, he literally cries and complains about how it hurts too much and that in a virtual world, he would never feel pain like this. And that's why he believes it's more of a real world than the actual real world itself. So with that out of the way, this should at least mean the Underworld scales to the real world itself. So any feat here should at least be on a 3-dimensional scale, but of course it will be higher as I'm about to explain why. While Kirito is in the Underworld, he's capable of both fighting and overpowering Integrity Knights such as Fanatio, And during their battle, it's even said in the novel of Sword Art that their battle was a transcendental battle. Now, this should at least be at the bare minimum 4D, as I just said, that the underworld is said to be on a scale or even greater than the actual real world itself. So this at least grants 4D. But of course, it could be higher, which I'm about to go over in just a minute. But Kirito, even at the end of Season 3, is capable of beating and killing Quinella, or Administrator, who is said to use transcendental magic. So this just adds on to more consistency for 4D stuff. Now, of course, we can go even higher. Now, you might be asking how. Well, for starters, it's confirmed multiple times that the underworld is actually infinite in size, and it has a much different flow of time compared to the real world itself. It can obviously be altered since it is a simulation, but it can be altered all the way up to over 5 million times the speed of our world. This is actually even supported as in the games for Sword Art Online, which while the games are canon during the very beginning and they branch off later on, we do know that all the information from the games are considered canon for the rest of the series. And in the games for Sword Art Online, it said that every single game, virtual reality, or even the simulation for the underworld has its own space-time. This would further support the different worlds being at least 4D, but if you wanted to use this, you could even argue 5D off of this. Now, we also know that the underworld has things that can transcend space itself, that you could technically call a transcendental space, so you can even argue that the underworld has at least a 4D to maybe even 5D space. And with Kirito being able to kill people and overpower people, such as Finazio and Quinella, who I said have transcendental things and have battles such on that scale, this would at least qualify for at the bare minimum 5D. Now, of course, the most impressive feat for Kirito is going to be the fact that he can fight against Gabriel. Now, Gabriel, when he transforms, is said to be a transcendental being compared to everyone else previously, so this would just, at least at the bare minimum, be 5D, but you can even argue up to 60. And Gabriel can at least scale to him in a little bit, as in the novel, when Gabriel was trying to attack Kirito's heart. Kirito was capable of concealing his heart in a bunch of iron spikes that was capable of harming Gabriel. And even in his ant form, Kirito is shown to overpower Gabriel. But I'm going to be going over just the base forms for Kirito in this, so I won't include his Star King form. Now, at the bare minimum, you have Sung Jin Woo and Kirito being anywhere from 4 to 5D, but Kirito having a slight edge if you were to argue all the way up to 60. So obviously, in terms of attack potency, you can either argue them equal or Kirito being stronger. But what about their hacks? Well, for Sung Jin Woo, he has hacks like telekinesis, being able to manipulate space as shown in this fight with Entourage, and a plethora of other abilities. But what he does have a lot is the system, which grants him a resistance to anything. Anything that will affect Sung Jin Woo negatively will automatically be cancelled out by the system, so it can't be affected by being put to sleep, having poison, paralysis, things like that. But what does Kirito have to counter this? Well, for starters, since we know that Kirito can obviously transcend and affect the worlds of Sword Art Online that all have their separate spacetimes, he at least has spacetime manipulation. But Kirito has a thing called Incarnation. Now, what is Incarnation, you may be asking? Well, Incarnation is basically the willpower of a user being used during a fight. Now, it's actually said on Twitter by the people who have made Sword Art Online and shown by the novels that Incarnation is actually capable of warping reality itself and altering probability for one during a fight. While probability manipulation isn't as good as fate manipulation, it does help Kirito quite a bit in this fight. Now, Incarnation can also be used for things such as telekinesis, as shown a lot when Kirito is capable of just pulling swords from a long distance away from him, but he also has a lot of other abilities, such as being able to rapidly amp his combat speed during a fight due to Starburst Stream, and he's also capable of creating a barrier around himself made of light, which is capable of deflecting attacks made by Gabriel and other people in the series. Now, the most impressive hacks that Kirito get is going to be from the system. Now, the system obviously is what defines the worlds of Sword Art Online, and they offer a lot of things. For example, characters like Yui and the creator of Sword Art Online, Akihiko Kaiba, or known as Heathcliff in game, are said to be immortal objects, which doesn't exactly mean that they're immortal, but more so they're invulnerable. They can't be hurt by anything or can't be killed. And we know that in the last arc of Season 1 for Sword Art Online, Kirito actually has the ID for Heathcliff, and he can use the system at his disposal. So he can have all the abilities that the system allows for, which even grant things such as paralysis, and can even alter laws of the world, which is pretty impressive for Kirito. We also know that the system allows for things to be deleted or rather erased, and you can manipulate gravity with them. So Kirito having these can obviously have a huge advantage for him during his fight against Sung Jin Woo. And other things such as being able to manipulate the literal matter of the universe and Kirito being able to redefine objects is going to be super helpful in this fight against Sung Jin Woo. Sung Jin Woo doesn't really have a lot of counters to Kirito's reality warping, being able to manipulate gravity, being able to erase things from the system, or just being able to rapidly amp himself during this fight with Starburst Stream. So with that being said, I have Kirito winning this fight with maybe around mid difficulty, maybe lower if I wanted to argue for higher ends for Kirito. Now, of course, a lot of you soul leveling fans might get really mad and go down into the comments talking about why Kirito is probably a trash character or why he would get one shot by Sung Jin Woo, but I pretty much countered all those arguments already within the video. Though I do want to say Sung Jin Woo isn't exactly that much of a pushover. It's just that Kirito just has a lot more to his advantage here in this fight. I mean, when you consider being able to warp reality, erase objects, control the laws of the universe, manipulate the matter of the universe, and redefine any object you touch, it just adds for a much greater variety of options to use against Sung Jin Woo in this fight. So that's why I have Kirito being Sung Jin Woo. So let me know down in the comments below if I were capable of changing your mind or even surprising you with the outcome of this winner, or the outcome of this fight. If you want more videos on Kirito or just any character from Sword Art Online, just let me know down in the comments, and I'd be happy to make more videos on them. So with that being said, that is going to be all for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.